Look, let's just park this for a moment, but I know you people are not going to let it rest. This declaration of war on working from home has really got people riled up. But another war has been going on in politics, the war between Darleen Tana, former Green List MP, and the Green Party itself. And last Friday, a court decided that Darleen Tana's attempt to have the Greens expelling her from the party and the way they did it declared illegal and therefore not valid and not binding was totally defeated, which puts the ball in this political tennis match firmly back in the Greens' court. What might they do, and what they do say about them? We're joined now by our good mate Chris Trotter, political commentator. Chris, this is a pickle, really, isn't it, for the Greens?
A pickle that they spent many years working in the kitchen to concoct, one has to say, Sean, and good morning, and thank you for having me on the program again.
You're working from home today, are you?
I have been working at home, Sean, for the last, I hate to think, nearly 40 years.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. This was a toute court, as they say in French, a complete victory for the Green Party in the courts. It makes me wonder exactly why Darleen Tana took it to court. Because,
and in fact, she's got to pay costs as well.
Well, yeah, that's what usually happens, particularly when you bring matters before a court where any sensible lawyer will already have said to you,
we've got a chance.
No chance of this succeeding. But look, it is also, as you say, now up to the Greens to decide their next move. There has been doubt about this only because back in the day of Rod Donald and Jeanette Fitzsimons, the party took a very strong stand against the waka jumping legislation that I think Winston Peters had introduced from the bitter experiences of his time with National between 1996 and 1997, 98, whenever it was, that he and National parted company. But I think what Rod and Jeanette were recalling went back even further than that to the way the Labour Party treated Jim Anderson when he stood up for Labour Party policy and his own council, of which I was a member at the time.
You did the duty on
him. No. We upheld his right. Upheld the Labour Party constitution, which said that policy came before the caucus's whims, and they had to take him back. But Rod and Jeanette were more than savvy enough to realise, just what the waka jumping legislation did for the leadership of political parties. You had a dissident member of your caucus, you could have him thrown out of Parliament. You couldn't be dissuaded by the prospect of having that person still sitting in Parliament, which of course was what ended up happening when Jim held Sydenham in 1990. But that is all ancient history. The problem the Greens have got is that over and over again they have voted against waka jumping legislation until the last time, which may be, the goddess of history messing with them, because they were in coalition with Labour, or they had a three-way deal with Labour and New Zealand First, and they more or less had to vote. It was part of their coalition agreement.
So, Chris, do they now? What's the time frame for them to make a decision on this? Can they? Is it like waiting for Godot or what?
No. Look, I think Chloe Swarbrick will move with expedition here. She more or less has to, because this has inflicted tremendous damage on the Greens, and it has certainly exposed the laborious, almost impossible decision-making processes of the Greens, which I think, a young woman with the kind of tidy mind that Chloe has must find this less and less acceptable. But look, they've gone through the process. They were very careful to go through the process, and the court, bless it, has rewarded them for being very, very process-oriented. So now they have, thanks to the lengthy and laborious processes of their rules, they've got 100 or more elected delegates around the country. That is to say, the branches have chosen someone to be a person who will cast its vote on their behalf after having discussed this. Those delegates will meet, I imagine, on some sort of Zoom call, or perhaps they'll all go to Wellington, although I can't quite see why they would do that. But anyway, they will now be asked to decide, do we throw her out or do we keep her out?
And what's your pick?
Oh, I think they'll throw her out. I think if they were to leave her in, it would do a number of things. It would reveal them to be political sadomasochists, first and foremost. And that is not something everybody kind of...
They are weird, though. I just want to move on quickly to this other thing that God has got my audience going this morning. The government telling public servants to go back to the office. Geez, if you've ever heard nanny state, there it is. And I just don't know if it's central government's role to tell people, public servants, to go back to work so they can save the Greasy Spoon Cafe down the road.
Well, I think it shows an alarming lack of understanding of human nature. And conservatives, above all other brands of politicians, are supposed to understand basic human motivation. This is always at the base of their arguments. Socialism is simply against human nature, they would say. Yeah. Look, people will naturally, behave according to their own self-interest. This is the right sort of baseline philosophy. What do you think people forced to give up working at home, completely, derange their childcare arrangements and all the rest of it? What do you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to go down and spend money they can ill afford in a Wellington cafe, or do you think they're going to make their own lunch?